So in my last video, I kind of gave a review of the things I like and don't like about the new German focus tree. And one of the things I mentioned is that I have a background in church history. So I brought up, hey, isn't it kind of neat to have Dietrich Bonhoeffer as an advisor to German? He actually tried to assassinate Hitler, which makes sense why he's not available if you're fascist. That being said, this game's got a lot of fun church history elements. I know over here there's like some Christo-fascist groups, which did exist at the time. Even in there actually was it probably if this game was based in 1933, you could almost have a balance of power between the Roman Catholic Church and the Italian Fascist Party. One of the things Mussolini did was try to position the Italian Fascist Party as one that would uphold Catholic values in the face of atheistic communism. Then there are things in the game that are just LARP, like the theocratic papal tree you can unlock if you go for enough down the monarchist path. And I would be lying to you if I said I knew everything about each theological leader in this game. Like the Finns, they have, as an advisor, you can select Elias Simojoki, or however you pronounce that. I'd be lying to you if I said I knew anything about him. My focus in my studies was mainly early church history. There is one theological anachronism in this game that is so egregious I couldn't help but talking about it. And it comes from the oh so beloved Trial of Allegiance. If you were to play a game as, say, Argentina, and you went down the communist path on here, there's a focus that you go down here in the middle and you see, and after you empower the FJC, you get one of two options: state atheism or liberation theology. If you go down the Brazilian path, there's a very similar focus: an atheist state and embrace socialist aligned theologians. Liberation theology wasn't even a concept at this time. It wasn't a thing. There were some economically progressive theologians. For example, in the US, you had Walter Rauschenbusch, who, if you ever grown up in a church that had a food pantry and a basketball court, that's because of his work. But liberation theology, like, wasn't even an idea. So the thing about liberation theology is it was articulated by a guy named Gustavo Gutierrez, who isn't Argentinian and he isn't Brazilian. Nope, he's Peruvian. And Gustavo Gutierrez's liberation theology was him applying the theology of another guy, one Jürgen Moltmann, and applying it to the Latin American context. Now, Jürgen Moltmann was a German man. Do you know what Jürgen Moltmann was doing during World War II? It might surprise you. He was in the Hitler Youth. He was in the Hitler Youth on the Western Front, manning a anti-aircraft gun as the Allies were pushing in. Jürgen Moltmann is a teenager at this time. He basically, at his anti-air gun, prays that God will save him, and he becomes a Christian then. And then only after the war does he develop his what becomes known as the theology of hope. So Gustavo Gutierrez reads Jürgen Moltmann, they become good friends, and he applies Jürgen Moltmann's theology of hope to the Latin American context. In the decades following World War II, the Monroe Doctrine went into overdrive, and really there was a lot of exploitative capital moves by the United States, and it had a horrible impact on the stability of a lot of these countries here. The U.S. helped do a lot of coups in the area to get oil rights of many things. All of that's happening in the 60s and 70s and 80s, not 1936.